Okay, gents, you got me there. Is there
Yes.
any background coming through?
It's fine. It's workable.
Okay, no. What we're going to do over the course of the next sort of 8 to 10 minutes is introduce a very complicated topic in very brief terms. And we're going to discuss imposter syndrome. It affects every single person differently, and there are a whole host of things, negative implications that it can have on your life. So let's kick off with a bit of a story. Picture this. You're alive and well in the quiet and quaint suburb of Baltimore, Maryland. You have a loving family, compassionate and caring, close-knit community. You're 7 years old and you first hit the swimming pool. You kick off your first lane block at the North Aquatic Baltimore Center, and your interest quickly turns into a passion. You break your first age group record. You swim the 50-meter freestyle in 32:01. At 10, you break another age group record. 100-meter butterfly in 1 minute 10 seconds. Ripples of your success start to tremor around your local community and regional areas. 15 years old, you represent your nation at the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games as the youngest man in 68 years to swim for Team USA. Athens 2004, you bagged 6 gold medals and 2 bronze. It's now 2000, you're 23 years old, and you achieve a feat that is written into the annals of sporting history. You single-handedly decimate the Beijing Olympic Games, taking an earth-shattering 8 gold medals. Every single event you enter, you get a gold medal for. More impressively, 7 of those 8 events, you set new world records for. Somewhere in your 20-year training regime, you train 5 days a year for 5 years straight. You don't miss a single day for 5 years straight. London 2012, 4 more gold medals, 2 bronze. Then you retire, and then you don't. Rio 2016, 5 more gold medals, 1 silver. And then you retire at 31 years of age. You're the most decorated Olympian with 28 Olympic medals, 23 of which are gold. That's more than twice the count of your nearest rival. Your nearest rival has 8. You have 23. You're the most decorated Olympian to ever walk the earth. You're a doer, a champion, you're a legend. Your name is, of course, Mr. Michael Phelps. Despite your lauded success and your titanic achievements across the globe, you're not always the Michael Phelps that everyone sees in the water. Courageous, confident, resilient, beyond measure, but also unsure, a little tender, and unwarranted anxiety presses over you when you least expect it. You've achieved some of the greatest achievements in the sporting world, and yet you're still unsure. Competitive pressure, training regimes, and the media spotlight combined to elicit the feelings we know only too well as imposter syndrome. So, what is syndrome? Why does it affect us? And what can we do about it? Imposter syndrome was first coined in 1978 by psychologists Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Ames. It's a widely recognized psychological phenomenon that negatively affects individuals' mental state. It affects everybody differently. There's a whole host of different means with which it can penetrate you. The most 4 common dispositions are feelings like this. Number 1, number 2, feelings of inadequacy and false comparison. Number 3, feelings of compelled perfectionism. And number 4, an unwarranted sense of fear or anxiety. What do we do about it? Or why does it affect us? Or rather, I should hit this one first. Well, because we're innately human is why it affects us. We're far removed from the rocks and the sticks we used as crude tools, and away from whatever cave it is we crawled out of. Research suggests that as much as 70% of people are negatively affected by imposter syndrome once in their lifetime. 70%. Research from Hutchins and Rainbolt 2017 further suggests that imposter syndrome and its constituent associated effects are heavily linked to negative mental illnesses such as anxiety and depression. It affects us because we're human, and it's completely indiscriminate. We've got no say over it. Ryan Reynolds, Sheryl Sandberg, Emma Watson, we name Michael Phelps, Hugh Jackman. They're among the other hundreds of world-class acts that have come out about having feelings of imposter syndrome. If them, with all their accolades and adoration, can be affected by it, well, so can we. So what can we do about it? Well, fortunately, we're armed to the teeth on that account. There are so many things we can do about alleviating imposter syndrome. I'm going to share 2 things with you. Number 1, remember that you're not alone. Sounds trite, but it's easy to do. When you feel imposter syndrome come on, I want you to try and take solace in the fact that you're not alone. We already indicated, the research laid it out for us, recent research, as much as 70% of the population are negatively affected by it at least once in their life. That means it's actually abnormal to not be affected by it. That's a double negative in positive balance. In other words, completely normal what you're experiencing. You're not a basket case, and this is not Shutter Island. Completely normal what you're experiencing. So take solace in that. Real imposters don't feel imposter syndrome. It's only coming on you because you've achieved something that others would consider worthwhile stealing. So number one, remember, you're not alone. It's completely normal. Number two, you need to break the negative thought patterns. It's quite literally in your head. The things you're telling yourself about yourself are setting this harsh self-repeater cycle on, turning the harsh self-repeater cycle on, and you need to break it. A few different ways you can do it. You can, of course, consult a psychologist. They'll take you through therapy such as CBT. I've also read of some quasi-EMDR therapy being produced. You can also speak to an NLP practitioner. They might take you through an anchoring technique or a whoosh pattern. There's a few different specialists that you can consult, or you can do it yourself. I'm going to give you one tip, and that's mindfulness meditation. You don't have to be a mountain monk. You just need to detach yourself from the current situation. Whenever you feel it come on, try and remove yourself away from that area. Sit down, get comfortable, shut your eyes down, and just breathe. Sit. 5 minutes, breathe. All you're doing is consciously converting O2 to CO2. Don't think about it, just breathe it out. You'll increase your resilience to stress and you'll slow down your mind. It's actually better used when you incorporate it in your routine throughout the week, but it still certainly has some potency as a quick fix 2 or 3 minutes thereafter. Guys, my name's Kane Ogden. As somebody who's faced imposter syndrome head on multiple different fronts throughout my life, I can, in consultation with my personal lived experience, the anecdotal reports of the high flyers we just mentioned, their books, the documentaries and so forth, and the literature, help you and other people like you, us sufferers of imposter syndrome, get through it. I have a hybrid online course that I'm dropping pre-sale in 3 weeks on. That will surely help. Those are but 2 ways. Remember that you're not alone. It's indiscriminate, can come on at any time. And number 2, there are a whole host of ways that you can deal with it. One really simple way is to incorporate meditation into your weekly routine. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. As you were talking about all the swimming stuff, I was Googling your name. I was like, oh, you look pretty fit, but I don't know what's going on. So it was, interesting. Michael Phelps. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he killed it. He really did.
Yeah, wow.
He come out publicly years later about the struggles that he was having, and then so many other people followed in his wake.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to think. I remember walking into what was for me a large client at the time. Probably the biggest one that I'd sort of gone to was like the YMCA, pretty large name. I remember walking in to see like the CEO, and my hand I was new to the industry. My hand was shaking as I go for the door, and I walk in, just did it anyway, and I was nervous. Turned out all right. I won the gig. It went sour later, but that was just internal struggles for them. It wasn't anything I could have changed, but won them over and won the job. So yeah, sometimes if you push through it, it's all good. Has anyone else got any experiences or even questions that they have for Kane?
I had one. It was interesting when you say the opposite, because I don't know if it's the exact opposite, but I think there's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Yep.
Yeah, but I remember seeing one thing, especially with sport and stuff, but when you learn, like, well, come from an IT background, but I think it's pretty much anything you study for, you go through that curve of, the people who know very little about it think that they're experts, and then you get a little bit more experience in it and you realize how much there is to know. And so there's that sort of graph of, I don't know if that partly leads to imposter syndrome, because all of a sudden you consider an expert on the subject, but you realize that there's all this stuff to do with it, and it's just, you have to know a little bit about the subject to know how little you know about a subject.
Absolutely. And just for context, what Steve was talking about, the Dunning-Kruger effect, really, really quickly. 1998, a guy named MacArthur Wheeler robbed 2 banks in Pittsburgh, United States. He robbed them in pure daylight, didn't wear a mask, didn't wear a sheet, just walked in there and robbed them, both of them, then took the bank back to his house that afternoon. The cops came to his house. He was surprised to be arrested for whatever bloody reason. And he was famous for exclaiming, "But I wore the juice." That would later come up in the court trials. What he meant by that is there were properties in invisible ink. One of the properties in invisible ink was lemon juice. So he wrongly thought if he put lemon juice on his face, he'd be invisible from the CCTV because it's in invisible ink, and he was legitimate about that. They dismissed his idea that he was a psychopath, that he was mentally insane. They tried him as an adult because he genuinely believed it. That led 2 psychologists, Dunning and Kruger, to study the phenomenon of these idiots that think that they know so much on the topic, which now we know is the Dunning-Kruger.
Crazy. Anybody else?
Kane, so that's one of the areas that you one of the problems that you help people solve in your business?
Yeah, that's right, Kim. Anything that a frontline manager would come to know as a speed bump, anything stopping their progress forward, imposter syndrome is one of them. That usually starts at not wanting to take the role to begin with, or quickly finding that they've been shoved into it and now they're in over their head. So yeah, that's one of them. Yep.
Great. What other areas do you typically cover?
So I've got a course on the personal leadership development courses, the kind of the program. These 3 programs are currently in the works, including the imposter syndrome one. Then there's a short course on understanding KPIs, what they are and how to implement them. And there's a short course on turning a bad situation into a learning point. So how do you take a sour situation to a good point? And the final one is having difficult conversations. I think that separates the wheat from the chaff, being able to actually have a sincere and assertive conversation that isn't a mind blast, but more, this is why the things you're doing are wrong and this is what you can do about it. So those 4 topics primarily.
Great stuff. Difficult conversations. That's always a big one. One of my clients specialises in that area. So yeah.
Kane, just listening to what you were saying of the various modules, I must admit, picking up on Kim's comment, to be honest, I really struggle to relate to imposter syndrome, probably because I've never been successful enough, but I do relate to the having of difficult conversations. I think that's a winner for you. And I think that's one that every leader finds themselves in that position, or they will do at some point, and it's something they can struggle with. So go for it. Absolutely.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you saying that. Yeah, for sure. I agree.
I can just make a comment there that the thing that I've read and heard people say, I was talking to somebody who has spoken in front of 17,000 people. She was starting out. She thought, why should she do it? But she also sold software. So one of her biggest deals was $23 million was one deal. And she walked into the boardroom with all these people for this company that was doing the deal. And she thought, what do I know? And then she just told herself, they don't know what I know. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to them. And that's how she overcame it. Just turned it around and sort of said, they don't know what I know.
And Ross, just taking that a step further, the good thing is they also don't know what she doesn't know.
That's right.
Well, in
very powerful position to be in.
Your known knowns, your unknown knowns, your unknown or your known unknowns, and your unknown unknowns. So if that's gobbledygook to anybody, look it up. There was a video where this was it.
It was Donald Rumsfeld, I think.
Yeah.
Secretary of Defense or something.
Yeah, it was making before they went into Iraq, they made a media statement, and the press are laughing, but the worst ones are your unknown knowns, right? So that's things you've already learnt and you've forgotten, or you've written it down somewhere and you've misplaced the file and you can't find it again. If you don't know what you don't know, then the world's, a mystery, and you want to minimize that as much as possible. So, but if you know what you don't know, well, the more that you realize you don't know because you know a lot is a really confusing conversation to speak. But if you know what I'm talking about, then it's easy. Anyway, excellent. Well, thank you very much.